And we're back. I wasn't sure if we were totally back yet. But yeah, we're back. Another week, another podcast. This time we have our good friend, Dennis Bermudez.
Dennis Bermudez.
Hi.
Host of the Menace and the Man podcast.
Yeah.
Thanks
UFC
for coming.
fight, former UFC fighter.
I know, former stuff. I'm out here.
We
And
were at
now-
the gym today at Belmore Kickboxing, and I looked up and I was like, they have pictures everywhere.
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit, look at that Dennis. It doesn't even look, it was like an Ultimate Fighter picture.
Yeah.
I was like your face, like even just your face, it didn't even look.
Well,
So,
I used to rock just the chin strap.
Yeah.
What year was the Ultimate Fighter? It was 2011.
11.
That's what I
Yeah.
said. I
Yeah,
said
you
10
said,
years.
You said probably about 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy.
So now, and mostly now you're working, podcasting, and being a dad,
Yeah.
right?
They're exhausting, all of those things. And I'm also trying to like get in shape
And
too.
get in shape.
How is it like your kids are like definitely like mini-me's of you?
Yeah, they are assassins.
Like, you gotta like understand when they're running around like all crazy. You're like, oh well, that's
well,
you.
for me, I'm cool with it. Like I want them to be tough. I
Right.
want them to be like killers.
Well,
you know?
you have them like spar and stuff in the living room, right? I saw
Yeah,
them with
that's
boxing
not
gloves.
like that's not. No,
I
that's
love
not-
those videos on your
That's not
Instagram.
like hey, like you get gloves. They
Okay.
just come running out like we're gonna like Bryson calls it wrestling. We're gonna wrestle. I'm like it's
But
you're gonna
they don't wrestle yet, or do they?
this is gonna be their first year.
Okay.
I like talked to their mom and like did some convincing.
Did they ask to wrestle?
No, I
think
was just
it's gonna
like
be- do you
I
have
was
to
like,
drag
hey,
them
this
there?
is like your dad used to do this.
well,
you
how
know?
else would they know what it is if they
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
see it?
Well,
Do you think they're gonna be into it, or
I think my little guy might. My older guy likes, like, I guess, skill sports. Is that I don't like
Sports with
football.
balls.
Like, yeah,
yeah. Team sports maybe.
yeah.
wait? So how old are they again?
8 and 6.
Okay, that's still so young.
I know.
I didn't start wrestling until
I know.
like, I mean, a little like 11.
Okay. I mean, even like so. Last year I had them doing gi jiu-jitsu.
Mhm.
And
I feel like that's complicated
on
for
the
a 5-year-old.
for sure, yeah. And on the way there, they'd be like, where are we going? We're going to the gym. Like, I don't want to.
That
And I would
sucks.
just
Because then you're
I
like,
would
I
just be
gotta
like-
push them a little bit.
like, yeah. So we'd drive there, and they'd be with all the other kids, and they would have fun,
Yeah.
and they would have fun afterwards.
But they're good at football, right? The one is
Yeah,
very good, right?
yeah.
But didn't you tell
But-
me? I was telling her that if you score a touchdown, you're not allowed to score another touchdown.
For
again,
my
right?
youngest, his
That's
coaches
wild.
decided. I don't know, like it's. And I
But
was
they
talking.
keep score or no?
Yeah.
That is like the worst thing I ever heard. So if
I
you had
know.
like a little like
Wait,
Barry
so
Sanders,
explain it.
So my youngest son plays flag football, and every kid's like kind of small and whatever. I mean, there's some that are heavy, whatever, and you could probably, put money on it. Like, yeah, you'll probably be a lineman, but they can't be like, you're gonna be a lineman. Like
Right.
every kid got to get a chance, I guess.
To do everything.
And it's not. I don't think it's the coaches as much as it's the parents.
So the parents are so what is the rule
What's the rule on?
on the team? Like
I don't
It's
think
just-
it's a league rule, right? It's
No, I think
your
it's just.
coach, everyone gets a chance.
Well, yeah, and if you get a touchdown, like, all right, you're not getting the ball anymore.
that's insane.
Yeah.
That's
So,
insane to me.
Imagine like
To
if you
kind of
were
spread it out,
like
right?
a super gifted kid though, like some kid who's like, oh, every time he touches the ball, he scores. Like, wouldn't you want that momentum of this kid scored, 100 touchdowns last
Right.
year, and then like that would build momentum into the middle school program, and then I would think that you'd want to
yeah, but-
something like that.
when we were younger, that's how it was.
It's not
Isn't
like
that what,
that
I would think that's what
No.
practice is for. Practice is for like, do they do like practices or just
Yeah, they
games?
had like 2 practices a
So
week.
I would think practice is where everyone gets a turn and do all that. And I'm not saying they don't get a turn, but if a kid
Right.
scores a touchdown, he's basically being punished.
Right.
Now you can't do it again.
Right.
And like you don't learn how to do it again, like in like because high school it can't be like that, right?
right. No, he's
I don't think.
well, no way.
yeah.
In high school,
So there's no way it's like that.
No, in
but
high school you
you'd
kind
wanna
of
learn-
develop. You like. I guess it's kind of like an MMA fight where you kind of like
Like a
funnel
smoker.
towards your opponent. Where like at a young age you kind of funnel towards as you get into high school, like your position.
Does that frustrate you as like cause someone who's competing
get
at
it.
such a high level and so
I get
competitive?
it. I mean, but it's weird because it's the coach again. It's the coach because my older son the coaches kind of go with the kids as they get older.
That's because someone
You
on
know?
their team is their son, probably.
Right.
Right.
And his son's like a monster on my
Uh-huh.
older son's team. So like
So he just
he was
wants
getting the
him to-
ball like
yeah,
a
yeah.
lot, you know? And I was like, you're winning, you know? And he
Yeah.
was like competitive too. You see these coaches like, hey coach, like whoa, he was kind of offsides. Like, you know, you could tell there's like a little like puffy chest. I'm like, this is like
Do you think that the kids would rather everyone get a turn, or if they had some all-star, we win every game, but he scores 10 touchdowns and I
So,
scored 0?
so for my older son, he's 8. The son and the one coach went to a Notre Dame game, and they were like, Graydon's not here. And I was like, so? I'm like, dude, you're gonna have a sick game. You're gonna get the ball way more. And he's like, I don't know. I'm like, oh man.
Oh, he
I
wanted
was-
to win because
He wanted. Well, this kid, like when he touches the ball, he's good for. Max is good for a first down,
yeah.
some yards. This kid's good for like.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like,
well,
if
that's
it's
good
like-
though. That means he
If
wants
it's
to
like
win.
first and like 12, like all right, give it to this kid. We'll get the first down.
right.
Yeah, that's
You know?
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that frustrating? Like, are parents like super annoying with sports? Or are they too young to really
Um,
get involved with that?
I
When you're
don't.
young, it's kind of just like everyone go. But
Yeah. Well, I think at least in Sayville, it's a very football
okay.
oriented kind of town. Even though it's a
Yeah.
smaller school, like they take like a lot of pride in their football. So I think they kind of get it
Yeah.
a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
But again, like they are young. Because I remember last year.
Yeah, it's still so young.
Yo, I don't know if I thought like, I'd be like driving home. I like called my dad, like, Dad, when I played sports, I was like 5, 6, like I was like the best on the team, right? He's like, yeah, you're pretty good. I'm like, all right, just making sure. Because last year, these guys were not putting up numbers.
Yeah.
Like they both scored 1 touchdown. And I was like, I'd be at games like,
Are you like,
Just-
yeah.
just trying not to like,
get upset about it?
like Bryson, get over here. Like, because he'd be out there like kicking daisies. I'm like, dude, pay attention.
yeah.
Or the team's playing and he's on the sideline doing like fucking Fortnite dances. I'm like, dude, like pay attention.
When you were growing up, though, was like being good at wrestling and stuff like the most important thing in the world to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Oh my
nothing
God.
else, right?
Yeah.
Like there's nothing else. It's just you wanted to be the best wrestler.
I remember I was signed up to go to the junior prom, and like my high school sweetheart, I'm like, I qualified for some like Pennsylvania tournament where I was gonna go to like the nationals.
Uh-huh.
It was at Penn State, and I was like, hey, so we're supposed to go to the prom, and she like already had her dress and her hair appointment. I'm like, so we're not going because I qualified for this tournament, you know? Like,
yeah, that was
But
more
that's
important.
you'd rather do that.
Oh yeah,
Of course, right.
And her
yeah.
mom drove me, and you know,
But that's older. So like kids, they still there's so many more things to be interested in now, though. Like I never played video games or had anything like that. It was just like, oh, you could do this sport.
It was sports or like maybe an instrument.
yeah.
It would be
like,
otherwise. I would just be at home, like I don't know,
riding
doing
your
nothing.
bike.
Yeah.
outside. But then
Right.
even out, yeah, you're playing outside. You're like playing, like I feel like
You
Basketball.
My
But
kids,
now you have to. The kids got to really, really want to do it because there's so many things to do and so many
Yeah.
distractions.
yeah. My older guy, like he constantly like, let's play catch. I'm like, I thought like before, like yeah, whatever you. I'm like kind of like, fuck. I can't play catch for that long. You know?
Press your shoulder.
Yeah, I'm like I'm tired. Well, no, I worked. I ran 2 miles. I'm
Yeah.
trying. I'm like cleaning the house and doing laundry. I'm just
Yeah.
like tired from the week.
yeah.
And he's
you're like, get your
"Damn, let's-"
brother.
And like also like, it's not like I can go my hardest. I got like it's hard to like tackle kids slow and you know.
You want to just blast stuff. on
Yeah,
them.
no. I mean, when they get older, I think you're gonna see like Menace 2.0.
Oh,
Because I gotta keep up with these kids.
Yeah.
of
That's like
course.
the competitive in me, I think.
Yeah. So something I want to talk to you about before you got on, like you're one of the only, like all our friends are like fighters, athletes,
yeah.
wrestlers. You're one of the only people that I know that was like the very, very tip of the spear, highest level
Yeah.
of fighter, and then has transitioned to a career that most people will stop fighting and be like, oh, I'm gonna now open a gym or something
Yeah.
else related.
Yeah.
You've now transitioned to like a real career, like a
Right.
9 to 5.
Yeah.
Like, how difficult was that?
I've always been like very coachable, I guess would be the word. I never
Yeah.
thought like my shit didn't stink and stuff like that, you know? I mean, I was in talks with Dana White and I was like, hey, listen, like, you saw me interview Tom Brady. Like, let me have a shot at like the commentating thing. He was like, sure, come to Vegas and we'll give you a tryout. Like that was like
So did you do that?
It was like I had already landed the lineman job. Like I was in. I didn't start yet, but I was like hired.
Okay.
You know? So I was just like, you can't do the two of them.
No,
No,
definitely not.
You know,
because your job is a job that you can't just not show up.
Yeah, being a lineman, it's like
can't be like every other week.
Well, no, I mean, yeah, even the weekends, like if a storm could roll in like last second, or someone could crash into a telephone pole and like, hey, get in here, like, okay, you know, you can schedule like vacations and stuff like that,
of course, but it's not gonna.
But if you were like
for
working with
another
the
real
UFC,
job.
you're pretty much gone like Thursday to Sunday, like I mean, there's fights all the time.
Right. And I remember, you remember Yves Edwards, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, good friend of mine, he was doing the commentating and like moved out to LA to do it just so he's like closer.
Mhm.
They didn't have to fly him. And I don't know. He like
didn't.
I thought he was pretty good too.
Well, then he went to the PFL.
Well, yeah, but the reason why he went to the PFL was like he'd be like waiting by his phone like, hey.
Oh.
Like
it's
they
not
weren't giving
consistent.
They weren't it wasn't consistent. They weren't giving him enough gigs to kind of like he could live off it, but not.
But then if
because even if it pays $10,000 each time, if you only do it 6 times in a year, it's $60,000.
Right.
Yeah.
That's not that much.
Yeah. And
6 times is probably
so
kind of a lot.
PFL I think like doubled what the UFC was giving him, and it was like gonna be consistent. So he's like, see you guys,
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't think I'm.
So
it's
with
not
that
very secure.
decision,
yeah.
with that, like if most of all the money you ever made was from fighting, which is like the riskiest business you could be in. So then do you think that then now you have 2 kids and your fighting career is over, then you thought maybe like, oh, I want something more safe and steady. I don't want to take another chance.
In all
taking
honesty,
a chance, that's taking another big chance.
If I didn't have kids, I'd still be fighting for
You'd
sure.
still be fighting.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Because
we always
why?
say, we're always like, I think they should have did a little bit. Most people when they retire, which is a good thing, because I think most people when they retire, there's like 2 fights before that where they're like, oh, they're going to do another one. They're going to do another one. So I think it's good. Like, I think for you being an athlete, you're probably like, fuck, maybe should I have kept going? Because you love it. But I think it is good to like retire earlier.
Love is a strong word.
Yeah.
I forget who said it. Somebody was saying, Usman. He's like, I don't love fighting.
Mm-hmm.
I just like competing. And that's the way I feel about it, too.
Well, because you're an athlete.
Right.
Like, they always say that. There's, like, the martial artist who's, like, like a George St. Pierre who really just loves, like, learning martial arts.
Yeah.
Then there's, like, the fighter, which would be, like, Nate Diaz, who just wants to fight people. And then there's, like, the athlete. And that's you, Usman, Gregor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Michael Chandler's probably like that.
I feel like I'm like martial artist.
I think you're a martial artist.
Yeah.
You love learning. You're doing jiu-jitsu forever.
Yeah. Like
forever.
if my last fight would have been my last fight, I would probably be doing the same thing I'm doing right now in camp. Maybe not as much sparring, but probably not wrestling.
Different diet.
Yeah, different diet.
So then what was it about having kids? You just thought, well, I need something steady?
Well, in terms of those, like, I'm obviously I'm biased because I'm me, but I'm like, I didn't lose those fucking fights.
No, I don't. That's for listeners who don't know. Dennis, towards the end of his career, he lost 4 in a row.
Yeah.
4 extremely. I was in the corner for a couple of them. Extremely controversial split decisions.
Yeah,
any split decision is controversial.
Yes,
one judge thought you won and 2 thought you lost.
Right.
That's how a split decision works. A licensed judge felt that you won.
Someone said you won, So
someone won. So sometimes he's on. So if they ran like different judges through all those, you easily could have been on finishing your career with a 5-fight win streak, because then you won.
Well, I wouldn't. There was no chance I'd done then.
Yeah, but it's just insane how that. So that must have maybe been in your head, like, oh, I got to beat the judges. I got to beat the fighter.
Well, it's also weird too.
Broke your spirit a little.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, because the only of the 4 fights I was like, would be the Korean Zombie fight. But then they let Frankie Edgar almost die. I'm like, why couldn't you give me that chance? I got hit like once, dropped, which how many fights have you watched me drop and then like come back and fucking win?
Look at like Clay Guida last night.
Yeah.
You know?
I missed that fight. We'll get to that
we'll
one
talk
later.
about that. But yeah.
Where it's like the Marab and Marlon fight. Remember?
Yes.
Marab was like disabled. He was running around running away from him. And we're like, why didn't they stop it? And then he comes back and wins.
Yeah.
Well, I think some fighters have that. Like, I think you have that where every once in a while you get like a flash knockout, then come back and win. Like, I think Eddie Alvarez has that. He gets dropped. I heard Eddie used to tell the ref, be like, sometimes I'll get dropped, but give me another chance. Like before he went out there.
That's been like, especially towards like the end, like something I've thought about telling the referees because you have a little talk in the back. Like, listen, if I go down, like you've seen so many of my fights.
Yeah.
You know, so that's why. Sometimes I think it's like political. Like the Korean Zombie just came back like, yo, we want this guy's good. Like he's very marketable. He's got like a cult following. If he gets any kind of inkling of like a win, like call it, you know?
You think?
I mean,
I think that's pretty conspiratorial. I think it
is, but I wouldn't
be a politician, I'm not gonna say his name, call me up after a few like, hey Dennis, like you think there's politics in sports? I'm like, I don't know. It was like, there is. I'm a politician. That was fucking, you know, I was like.
It's tough because you never know. I mean, I think sometimes it's just the style of the judges. Like, you know, sometimes some
he's talking to the ref on that one.
Right? That's why I'm saying judges, but I mean refs.
Yeah.
Some of them just let things go. Some of them, like, we talked about it before, like, Herb Dean's always confused. He's always, like, in and out. And every time he does it, every fight card, they're like, oh, what's wrong with him? I'm like, he does this every fight card. He's like, and if I were to, like, have him, I don't think I've ever had him.
Really?
Maybe.
I feel like you probably have.
But now that because I'm such a fan of it and watch fights all the time, if I saw him, every time I'm waiting before they come to the locker room, I'm like, I hope it's not him, just because one, if I'm trying to finish the person and like he's hesitant and lets him go, or if I'm on the bottom, I'm like, you know what I mean? I just want someone that's gonna be either yes or no. That's it.
Right.
I mean, listen, being a referee is such
I would
tough.
I would look like 10 times worse than her. I'd be like, never mind. But I would never do it. It's just so scary.
Being a judge is tough too.
Like, you know, when they bring him in for the final fight and they have the talk, like, listen, I want no, you know, clean, fair fight. Do you guys want me to let you guys like die, or should I call it quick? What do you guys want?
Yeah.
Agree on it, and you know,
he should ask
touch
him.
Gloves. Like, all right, cool. You guys want to die? Like,
yeah.
Dana, you saw that, right?
And I hate when people are like, oh, well, it's a title fight, they should let it go. I'm like, oh, so if it's not a title fight, they call it? I'm like, no, if you're in the UFC, you're at the highest level sport. They should just, you know.
But I'm sure that even like if you felt that was an early stoppage, that doesn't mess with your psyche as much as those split decision losses.
Right? Yeah, because they're. I would much rather get knocked out than lose like a decision. I think.
Yeah.
Because there's like, you know, now there's like the what if, like, listen.
And it's annoying everyone saying like, oh, I thought you won that fight. It's like, all right, well, it doesn't matter. I didn't. So like, you know, I thought so too.
And also like, if you were to get TKO'd, it's kind of like you went out on your sleeve, you went out on your shield. Right. It's kind of a little more than like some Joe Schmo who never steps in the ring was like, that guy.
Yeah.
Right, you know, that's how I feel, you know, because
some judge just says this or that.
Yeah. Because I lost on the card I fought on with you, I lost to
Andre Feely.
Andre Feely, right? He like got those takedowns that we talked about. My butt hit and I'd get back up and they'd be like, takedown. Yeah. But then Colby never took down Usman.
That's weird.
You know?
Yeah.
I feel like that's a new thing though, where they're like, no, takedowns are not takedowns anymore. It seems like it's new. It used to be like a wrestling takedown.
I think there should almost be, because you've been fighting for how long? Like, do you know exactly what they're scoring on?
No. I don't know the rules. Like,
yeah.
And people are like, you got to get a takedown at the end of the round to win the round. I'm like, do you? Like, I
think that definitely helps.
Oh, it helps, but it's like that's become a rule, but it's not even a rule. But,
it's not a rule. It's just like leaving a point to the judges. I forget what guy said it's like the first and the last minute of every round is very important. Like if you win, like you start the round off to these judges that don't, you know.
Yeah.
It's like acting, I guess. But it's so hard to like do that. How do you go like your hardest for 1 minute?
And,
chill for 3 and then go your hardest at the end.
People say that you're like, I'm trying to win the whole time.
I'm trying to finish this guy. Yeah.
I hate that when people are like, go harder at the end. I'm like, I'm trying to go hard. Like, what do you think I'm doing?
There's a few people who I do see like start slow though now. Like last night even, like Jose Aldo, the first round, I think because Rob Font was so fast and a good boxer. Jose Aldo, you could tell, was like feeling him out the first
Like
4.5 minutes.
Yeah.
Then he slowly picked it up. Then by the third round, Jose Aldo looked amazing. But that's kind of like what
I think
Peter
that's
Yan
5
does.
round experience.
In a 5-round fight, you can do that. A 3-round fight, I don't think you could take a minute off.
Yeah, you kind of got to sprint.
Yeah.
But a 5-round fight, I think some of those really good guys, they start slow. And
when you have that much experience.
You've had 5-round fights, have you?
Well, I was supposed to. The Korean Tommy fight.
Was that the only main event?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, for me, and I think Gregor would say the same thing, it's just like, just drown the guy.
Yeah.
Go until you can't breathe, and hopefully he stops breathing first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you're going for 25 minutes, if I drowned you, and just...
You're like, I'll be tired, but you're going to be more tired.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
You think your best attribute was your cardio?
1,000,000%.
Yeah.
That's why I never smoked weed in my whole life.
Because you're afraid to hurt your cardio?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, if I have one superpower, that's it.
Caitlin
I feel
probably
the
has smoked weed a couple times in her life, and she is like the best cardio.
I love
Yeah.
cardio. I think that's like
Well,
my best.
Again,
But if
I
it's
think
in your
a-
head, it doesn't
yes,
matter, you know.
placebo effect,
Once there was a couple, like, I think I was always the same thing, like 8 weeks out. I was like, well, I was like, oh, they're gonna test you for it.
I feel like you do whatever Frankie Edgar does. You're like, well, Frankie smokes during camp, so I'm gonna smoke during camp.
I remember one day, this is like years ago. I feel bad like even saying it, but I remember this. I don't even know if I was in the UFC yet, or maybe I was pro, and it was like on a holiday, like Thanksgiving, and we were meeting a couple people, fighters, are like, all right, those people have camps, like we gotta wrestle. We'll wrestle today, and we went to Frankie's wrestling gym. And when we walked in, he like went to unlock it, and I was like, Frankie smells like weed. I was like, oh my God. I'm like, Frankie Edgar smokes weed. I was like, oh, I can do this. I'm like, it's fine. I'm like, all right. Because I always think I'm like, he's so professional and does everything.
Yeah.
And I think like some people are like, oh, you can't do that. But then they're like drinking alcohol in camp. And to me,
I think that's probably a lot
I think like alcohol is
that throws your workouts off the next day.
Yes.
I wouldn't smoke before like training, but like when I come home from a long day of training and like I can't eat, can't drink, then I'm like, all right, I want to, and it just helps you relax. You're like,
that's the biggest thing for me is something just to kind of go,
yeah,
and kind of relax. And for some people, it might be like 2 beers.
Yeah.
As long as you. Because, I mean, in terms of how many calories we're burning and stuff like that,
Right.
I mean,
that doesn't matter.
If you drink 12, then you're going to start hindering your next day's workout,
Right.
But yeah, so you relied so heavy on the cardio, but was it more like a wrestling thing, or you think you developed that?
Probably.
Yeah, because in wrestling, you were from like your college was like hand fight, get them tired, pull on their head, and then score later.
I also
it wasn't like a beautiful takedown at the beginning.
No,
right?
no. Well, I'm also like, I was never a super technical guy. I was just like
pull on
in
them
your
until you get
face and
tired.
just,
And then that translated to fighting.
Yeah. It's funny when I watch some guys that like are so slick at wrestling, and then I watch them fight and they're dumb stiff. I'm like, hang on.
You're like, you should be better at this.
Well, that was the other thing I want to talk about, because I saw someone yesterday posted on the Instagram. They said the best wrestlers MMA. It was Curtis Blades. Curtis Blades posted it, and it had like 8 people, and there was Marab, Usman, Colby, Gregor, Curtis Blades, John Jones, Chandler, and there was someone else. And Gregor's like saying, he's like, I don't know. He's like, what are they asking? The best wrestler? Like, who's the most accomplished wrestler, or who uses wrestling the best? Because you're not like an accomplished wrestler per se.
No.
I mean, you wrestled in college,
not like those guys.
but you're not like an NCAA champion. But you, I mean, up until very recently, you had the most takedowns in the featherweight division, number 1.
And now Elkins does. Now is he a good wrestler?
Right. I think.
I would smash him in a wrestling match, but
but like, why is it that?
Let that be known.
Why is it that some people like you who's like a good wrestler, but you were like an insanely good, superior, excellent MMA wrestler?
Probably
Like,
fear.
why?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. I think some people are really good at takedowns, but they're like afraid to. I mean, it's a lot different when you're standing across the person. They're throwing flying knees and everything else. Like,
So you're fearless, you're saying, or feared that you
Probably
didn't-
both.
Yeah.
Like, man, this guy has a chance on our feet. But if I just get to his leg, and then that gets into like getting him tired.
yeah.
Well, and I think also, see, I
and
thought it
scoring
was the
points
opposite.
and
I thought you were going to say the opposite, because I felt that because you were so willing to throw your hands, that people had to get their hands up, and then your level change.
And
well,
you're
so
that
fast.
was where it went to when I.
Oh, you're saying at the very beginning.
Yeah, the very beginning.
But
like,
by the time you're beating like Clay Guida, it was because he had to respect your hands so much that the takedown was easy.
Right.
So you adapted to MMA,
Yeah.
like
Well, I
using
mean, I would
strikes
just-
to takedowns.
Well, at first, naturally, like if someone planted hard, I'd be like, go.
yeah.
Mm.
I watched Gregor do that too. He had that ability. Like as soon as someone planted hard to throw, like you were
Like,
you
no
were-
matter
you
what,
were-
the second they move,
you were
you're
already
going.
on your ass.
Right.
Like if you were light on your feet, wouldn't shoot unless you move towards them
Yeah.
and say But as soon as you plant, I'm like, I'm gone.
yeah,
running
but your
right
like
through you.
level change, I always felt was so fast.
Yeah. And then just getting better, and I have shorter arms than everybody. Because if you could build like the perfect fighter, it'd be her. Like long and like
yeah, that's what. So it's funny. I think people that are like shorter and stockier, they want to be like
Yeah.
long and lanky, and then the opposite. Because to me, I'm like, well, yeah, I'm good, but once we're connected, it doesn't really work like that. Like I feel like shorter people can get under me a lot easier. I can keep them out range, but once they're under, now I'm like
Yeah,
up really
yeah.
high. So it's kind of goes both ways, and I
Well,
feel
well-
like my body type is like less explosive.
Yeah. A lot of people that I like watch fight that are wrestlers, I'm like, dude, you're standing straight up.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you could generate, I think, more punches in your powers if your legs are bent. Like Mike
Right.
Tyson would be like, his legs would be
Right.
bent and cocked and like, and he
Uh-huh.
would come in and throw his shit and he would be knocking people out,
Right.
Using your hips rather than just
like
your arms.
and like the bend in the legs, so you get your triple extension through your legs into your punches, so like I'm already in that athletic position, so if I need to shoot I can shoot, if I need to throw a punch I can punch, if I need to sprawl I can sprawl. I'm already where if I'm standing straight up, like for me to shoot now you see it coming.
Yes.
For me to sprawl it takes so much more time to get down to defend.
right.
So that's one thing. It's just if you could do all three of those things from one stance versus
Right. That's something that
the
helps with wrestling.
eyeball, yeah.
Yeah, it's not that you never were like, now I'm striking, now I'm wrestling.
Yeah.
Now I'm striking. It was always the exact same.
Yeah.
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 it was
Or like a lot of things that were predetermined in my head.
because if they were to make that exact post now, I'm sure you would have been on it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you're retired. Like same
That was
reason
just like the
DC
current
wasn't
ones
on
right
it.
now.
But,
Right.
Henry
but-
Cejudo wasn't on it. yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, I always found it interesting that some fighters.
But also, what does that mean though? Like you said, is
I don't
it
know what it
using
means.
in MMA.
I think
or-
it's using it in MMA.
I would assume
because
because if you're
Marab never wrestled.
right.
yes,
you know?
Right.
I would
right.
assume it meant in MMA because it's like outside of MMA, it's like okay, well we're not.
Who
that's-
cares?
I mean, who cares? Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
Right.
You could have someone that's like a, boxing like go to undefeated boxer and like no one cares when they go to MMA.
It's funny because when I was like before I got into MMA, I remember like being at the training center and like Dan Henderson or Matt Lindland would come out to like train, and I'd be like, I mean, I could beat these guys, I could take them down, but I thought whoever the better wrestler was gonna win.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's whoever puts things together. The
For
best.
sure. For sure.
Like,
I would
there's-
before I started fighting. Period. I'd be like with a couple of my buddies with like a 12-pack of beer, watching like WC, and I'm like, I will crush
I remember I always thought
I would.
that.
I would shoot right there, and then it'd be like Pettis. I'd be like, I would blow boom right there. I would have just blew right
Right.
fucking through him.
So the thing that like I didn't like, I just assumed that like, oh, the better wrestler will just win. But if like as a college wrestler, like what made you think like, oh, I could be good at this? Just because your belief in wrestling?
Well, I never really thought I was really good at wrestling. I mean, I
No,
thought
that's
I
what
was-
I mean. If
I
you
thought I
weren't an
was
accomplished
good,
wrestler,
yeah.
that's what I'm saying is you weren't an accomplished wrestler.
Yeah.
What made you think, oh, I'm gonna be an MMA fighter?
It was like on accident, really. I told you guys the fake kid story.
No.
I didn't, or I said I would save it for the podcast.
The fake kids.
Oh, I know this story.
I don't know it.
Yeah. So I was wrestling in college, and my parents are divorced. My mom lived in Pennsylvania, and I would visit her like every summer for the full summer or long winter breaks or spring break, you know.
Okay.
So like I've like had friends where my mom lived, you know,
Uh-huh.
and there was a town pool, and so if you don't think your boy was hitting double front flips on the, I'm like, that kid's cool.
Yeah.
So I made friends very easily, and there was a girl in the town that I'd known since like 3rd grade, you know, and like as we got older, remember when every girl was like, I'm a model, like when Facebook came out, like I don't know.
Okay.
Like yeah, I was doing some professional shots, you know, so like so she was doing some pictures like near my college, and she hit me up like, hey, I'm over. I'm like, come on by. So if you don't think I got her hammered drunk and nailed her,
Oh my god!
like, you know, so that happened, and this is not a good move. But like in college, I'm like, you on the pill? Yep.
After?
Like no,
Okay.
like during, like you on the
Okay.
pill? Yep. Like full send.
Uh-huh.
You know?
Oh my
Yeah.
god!
Yeah.
It's
not
so
good.
crazy because now you're like, what the?
Oh my god, yeah, I would never. So 7 months go by, right? I'm on my way back from the Canada Cup. I get a call from her.
And have you really talked to her in the last couple
No.
months? Okay.
It was just kind of like,
That's it.
awesome.
Yeah.
We had fun, whatever. And I'm coming back from the Canada Cup. She calls me like, hey, what's up? I'm like, oh.
You knew right away?
No, I'm like, she wants round 2.
Oh.
You know, like, you blame her?
Yeah.
So I get back to school. I call her, I'm like, hey, what's up? She's like, when you come home, we need to talk. Like, when are you coming home next? I'm like, whenever you want.
Yeah. Oh my god.
And so, because we really got to talk. I'm like, why? What are you, pregnant? And she was like, yeah. I laughed at her for 1 hour straight.
Oh my
Just
god.
like, get the fuck out of here. Like, no, you're not. I am. Shut up. Just 1 hour of that.
Yeah.
And
Why
then
would she wait 7 months to tell you?
we'll get there.
Uh-huh.
I was like, so then I was like, oh, we were having keggers like out in the backyard like every night.
Yeah.
And like,
Come on over. We'll talk.
well, no, like I was just like, okay, I'm going to be a dad.
Mhm.
I think I like went upstairs, like locked myself in my room. They're having a party outside, like with kegs. I'm just like, started tucking my shirt in. Like, I'm a dad, you know? So then I go to the town. She's full blown,
Full belly.
like
That was the first time you've seen her since?
Yeah. I'm like, you are pregnant. Like, holy shit, you know?
And you're what, 20?
20 years old.
20. Okay.
20 years old.
20 years old.
You know? And I was a sophomore going into my junior years that summer.
Yes. Halfway done with college.
Yeah. So, you know, everyone's like, yo, like, get a paternity test, You know, I'm like, okay. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to get a paternity test. And she was like, you don't trust me? And I was like,
Why would I trust you? I wasn't even
I
dating you.
don't know you.
well, I do know her.
Yeah,
you weren't
but-
dating.
Yeah, so I just whatever, and I was like, she's like, this is like, if we're gonna have a relationship, you're not gonna believe me now, like what, like, whoa.
Then you're like, well, now I really want to get a test.
No,
You know what I mean?
I was like, you are hot. Like, I
Yeah.
do want a relationship with you, you know. So I was just like, all right, like, you know, and I didn't, and then I went. Any money I made from camp, I'd just be like. So we would make like $700 or something like that, right? Like in like 2 weeks or.
Yeah, that was supposed to last you like the summer.
I know. No, I would just.
Right.
I remember taking the check and just going like here, and
Yeah.
any kind of money I made, and her mom the whole time like, make him quit wrestling and like get a job, you know. And I'm like, this is funding my school, so I get a degree to get a good job and take care of us in the future. Like, what do
Yeah.
you? It's
That's
such
so
a
short-sighted. Quit college and then go work,
She's-
deliver pizza.
She's
Yeah.
a white trash. This is Amish country.
Yeah, I got it.
There's
She's from Pennsylvania or Saugerties?
Pennsylvania.
Oh,
This
she's from
Amish country, Pennsylvania. This the graduating
Shout out
class.
to the PA girls.
Yeah, this the graduating class is 45 kids or something like that.
Okay.
Something like,
Yeah.
and like her mom's this like super obese like babysitter.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It's like hillbilly algae.
Yeah. And I was just I'm going to school, and like there was like one day Wednesdays we
How many months? So that was, she told you at 7 months, and this is going on.
Yeah, so I'm there. I cut the cord and everything. Like,
holy fuck! You were in the delivery room.
yeah, it's my kid.
Are you okay?
Probably not.
15 years ago.
Yeah, but that's like trauma.
Yeah,
That's
so
wild,
so then I spend the full summer working 2 jobs, right? And then school started back up, and so then my junior year, we didn't have morning lifts on Wednesdays. So Tuesday night I would go drive to Millersburg, which is like an hour and a half away from my college.
Damn.
Spend the night with them, come back Wednesday, go to class, and then every weekend we would flip if I went to Millersburg or she came to Bloomsburg. And like my college buddies would be like hanging out with the babies. Like I would like bring the baby up to the wrestling room, put up a pack and play, and like wrestle.
That's wild, man.
Yeah.
For how many months?
I did it for a full year.
Oh my
junior year, I did the full year. That's what we did.
This is like what, 2009? No, earlier.
No,
8.
this is 8.
Yeah, 2008.
Yeah, 2008. And then it got kind of bad where like everything that I like was going for changed. Like,
Well, yeah.
I know, like originally when I was in school, I was like 2.0 is fine with me. I'm gonna be a national champion, All-American. I'll just do the bare minimum so I could put max effort into wrestling. You know.
Right.
Then I had this kid. I'm like, well, I gotta get on the dean's list. I gotta become father of the year, and I gotta be an All-American. I started putting pressure on myself.
Oh my god.
And like I started losing to like people that I should probably crush.
You had
I
a lot on your plate.
But at a Division 1 level, right? That's
Think about, like,
even the scrubs are like tough.
Think about like in college when like 2 college kids just go through a breakup and how that affects kids.
Yeah,
let alone like having
yeah.
starting a family.
But like without 9 months to prepare, it was just like you're a dad now.
So
almost.
then what happened?
So I actually like one night was like almost like ready to kill myself. Like I would leave the wrestling room like fucking people like, yo, dude, you want to ride down the I'm like, no. I'd walk and I would just cry.
Oh my
You know, just because like and not because like just because I was
it's a lot of
losing.
stress.
I was losing the guys in the room that like I could beat with one hand behind my back, and I'd just be like paralyzed. Like I'd get in the room and just be like couldn't breathe, you know. So like one night, I haven't told anybody this. I took like 20 aspirin, and I was like, if I wake up, like
Stop it!
I swear
really?
to God,
Oh
You were
my-
thinking if I wake up.
You were willing to
Did
take
you
the
throw
risk.
up?
nothing. Nothing.
You just woke up
You just
sad
slept
still.
good?
Nothing.
You're like, I'm still here.
Nothing.
Nothing happened.
No, I
You feel weird?
maybe I don't know.
Aspirin. How do
It's
you
all I
get a
had.
stomach ache?
It's all yeah, probably.
Really? So you're like, fuck it.
I was just like, dude, this sucks. Because it's between her mom being like, make him get a job and like
Yeah.
not producing for the team and winning. Like, I'm a winner.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't winning it in practice,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And just like, my grades were like I was like creeping on like the 2.0,
Yeah.
you know? So I think I made a comment to like, dude, last night I tried to I ate like 20 pills to see what happened, you know?
Yeah.
And I think some of my boys like, ha, and like told my coach. So like the one, hey, big dog, come to the office. And I went in there. My mom was in there.
Oh, geez.
And he's like, big dog, have a seat. I'm like,
You
what's
knew
up?
right away.
Well, no. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, why are you here, mom? He's like, big dog, gotta take you off the squad. And I was like, what? No. Like, he's like, dude, you're gonna kill yourself. Like, I can see like what you're eating yourself alive. And I was like,
That's terrible because it's almost like,
Let's get an eye on the coach though.
for sure.
yeah, but like to
I
kick
was-
someone off that and you're like,
No,
well,
he wasn't.
not-
No, he
not-
was pulling me off the starting lineup.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
You gotta
pulling
get
me
your
off
shit
the
together.
yeah,
Yeah,
like
okay.
bro, like you're gonna murder yourself. Like, I'm like, no, coach, like I can do it, you know?
Yeah,
like,
of course.
He's like, dude, no. And then, dude, I was like, for the team. I was like, all right, you know? And then I got on the dean's list, started like crushing everybody in the room again.
Maybe that's just that pressure of it being off, maybe? Or?
Well, just the competition. I mean, Kyle, like, he probably, you know, he's the champion, but like, it's just you're competing probably 7 matches a week, probably.
Yeah.
Like 1 or 2 duels in a tournament, you know?
That's a lot.
And then making weight and then going to school and fucking competing.
Making weights, once that's out of your life becomes a lot easier, right?
Yeah, but like
so young
at
too.
Bloomsburg, we didn't have like what me and you know now.
Yeah.
It was just like I would eat a chicken parmesan hero and be like, all right, I just won't eat tomorrow.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's what it was.
Yeah.
Like, I'll just spend another half
You'd
hour
stand
in the sauna.
on the scale holding a chicken parm,
like a soda, like a cola, like a fountain soda, like
all right.
All right.
Yeah.
You know?
So wild.
Not even like
all that mattered was what food weighed.
Yeah.
Okay, finish the story. I don't want to go off on
no, that's fine. So took me off, things started getting better. I finish out the year and then I go when I'm working 2 jobs. My sophomore summer. No, sorry. My junior summer. I moved with my family. I'm doing that. And then my senior year started and like I had already given back like my scholarship money, but I was still in the room, you know. So then Monday I would go work 2 jobs. I'd get up at like 3:00 in the morning, go work at UPS till 8, and then at 9 I'd do landscaping from like 9 until like whenever, you know. And then Tuesday I'd go to UPS 3:00 or 4:00 in the morning till like 8, drive like 2 hours to Bloomsburg. I started booking all my classes.
Like in one day.
For like, I'd do all my classes and then I'd wrestle afterwards because like that made me happy. I like being with my boys. And then like, you know, the kid's mom would be like,
why are you wrestling?
Why aren't you back yet? Like, dude, this is like something that kind of makes me happy.
Yeah.
You know? So then, and then Wednesday was the same as Monday and Tuesday was the same as Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
And then Friday, I might not have class at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Or I just worked as much as I could. So I was doing that and I just like, Kyle could get to this too, like, just like my clock.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, I would be driving to work and see like black nothings run across the road.
And I would,
I would just be like, dude, I want to hit a deer so bad
So you have a couple days
so
off.
that I crash and I'm in the hospital and I can fucking rest.
Yeah.
Dude,
wow.
that's, hang on. I wanted to crash.
Yeah.
That's how tired I was. Like, I would legit, between jobs, pull into a parking lot and just shut off the car and, like, instantly fall asleep for 20 minutes and, like, all right, let's go. Let's go make more money, you know?
So this is how much time has gone by?
So now halfway through, right? So, you know how you have that winter break in college?
So it's like
I'm just like, I'm not doing this anymore. So I drop out of college and I'm just working 2 jobs. And then, you know, just rent in Pennsylvania in Millersburg, it was like $425 for a 2-bedroom apartment. Like, I was having trouble making that. I was making like $120 a week at UPS, but I had benefits.
Yeah.
And then landscaping, the guy would pay me $8 an hour under the table and like wouldn't always have my money. Like, oh, hey, next week I'll get you. Like, all right, you know, like sometimes I'd be like a month deep, like, Drew, I'm gonna fuck you up. Like, give me my money, dude.
Yeah.
I'll give you. I only get $200 on my network. Like, all right, and I'll pay the rest. It was like that, you know. Good guy, but just a little fucked up. So then things started like tension, like paying. Like she had like a nice, not a nice job, but like
she had a job.
She could easily pay her half of the bills,
right?
No problem. But for me, I'm like scraping,
consistent.
Like Drew, you got any work? Nah, sorry, it's winter. Like, all right, you know, tension started getting whatever, and then. Fucking gross, not. But one night when I like put it all together, she started going back to school. I'm like, good, like it's good, like I'll support, you know. So she's like, I got a test, and then I'm gonna go work out. I'm like, okay. And she got home at like 2 a.m. and I was like, what are you doing? She's like, oh, like I had 3 hours to take the exam. I took the whole time. And then I'm like, you go to community college. Like, it never took me the whole time. I went to a university and my finals never took me the whole time. Like, what do you?
Well, nothing's at 2 a.m. either.
Well, no, it was an evening class, right? And then she's like, then I went and worked out. I'm like, the gym's open. Like, we're in the Amish country. Like, what?
Yeah.
It's open 24/7. I'm like, I don't think so. Turns out she's like dating some guy in Baltimore.
Oh,
you know,
my
yeah.
God.
So we split. Now I'm with a fucking colic 2-year-old. The kid was like that.
Yeah.
Colic, like.
Yeah.
2-year-old now.
Yeah.
That's how much time I'd gone by.
Yeah, it's 2 years old. I'm dad. It could say dad. I'm
yeah.
dad. And now I'm living with my cousin because like I split up with her, right? But pulling girls
In
when I
that
didn't have the
same
kid.
area?
Yeah, like I just didn't want to be living with my mom, my grandmother.
Right.
Like, you know, if I brought a girl home from the bar, like, just, you know, like at my cousin's, I had like she got like a little apartment almost downstairs from me, you know? So I'm just like, dude, this fucking sucks. And then what she started doing, and if I didn't confine with her rules, the kid's mom, she'd be like, all right, let's go to a court. And I'm like, ugh.
Oh my God.
Because I didn't make any money. Like, what am I, how much, I wouldn't, like,
Yeah.
and she would hold that over me, like, you know, we'll go to court. I'm like,
and then you're like, fine, whatever you say.
whatever, yeah. So I'm like, dude, I need to fucking get out of
What an
this.
evil bitch.
This fucking sucks. Like, I'm 22 years old. Like, in my head.
Were you thinking at this time, like, this
This
might
is
not
the
be
rest
my
of my
kid?
life.
Or you were just like, no, you just, at that point, you were like,
And I was like, how do I get out of this?
You can't.
How do I?
But,
like,
you
the
can't,
only
though.
way I can get out of this is if this is not my kid. So
Yeah,
I was
but
like,
that's literally the only. There's no if it was your kid.
yeah.
You can't
So
get
I
out.
was just like, I've got nothing else to lose right now. Like, I called my old man and I was like, Dad, I'm in a hard spot. Like, can I come home? Because he lives, you know, my dad has there would be easier way for me to make money. Like, Dad, I'll tow any car any hour,
yeah.
whatever. And he was like, let me get back to you. He never got back to me. Like, I was in like a dark place, and my old man was like,
Wow.
I wanted to come home. I'm like, yo, because I can't, like, I'm raising this kid, but like, Pop, I am not happy. Like, how can I make this kid happy?
Yeah.
How can I make anybody else around me if I'm fucking miserable? You know, like
You
this.
felt like such a loser.
Yes, I live in the fucking Amish country, Pennsylvania,
No money.
with a fucking 2-year-old.
No more wrestling.
No money, no wrestling. Like, and at this time, like, I had a chip on my shoulder. I remember going out a few times without I was not wrestling, and some guy would just be looking at me like, what the fuck is this? Like, I'll
Right. You're
fuck this
angry
guy
all
up.
the time, stressed.
Well, no, not
angry.
that. I just, because wrestling, you just get it out.
Yeah.
Any
Yeah.
fighting, you just get it out, you know? And so, to answer your guys' question, what got me into the MMA, right? So, during this time with this kid, right, a lot of people, MMA was on this big rise. A lot of people were like, Dennis, why? Like, you're such a good wrestler. Why don't you do this? Like, you know, you got muscles, like, you're aggressive. Like, I think you'd be sick of this. I'm like, yeah, I know. I definitely would be good at it, but I just don't have time.
Yeah.
So I made this, like, weird little, like, I told myself something. So then when I got the time, finishing the story, so I got a paternity test. I didn't need the mom.
How did you do that?
You can just send in for a test. And I wanted the people, like, to come to my house and do it because I'm like, I want this
Did
thing.
you do
Make
this
sure
behind
it's-
her back? Or?
Yeah, you only need yours
Right.
and the kids. So so
okay,
I
yeah.
got a
You
lab.
don't need her consent.
Yeah.
No,
Of course. Right?
yeah. So I swabbed my mouth, swabbed it, sent it in, and I didn't have an email at the time because my college account got fucking
Yeah.
shut down. I wasn't paying money over there anymore. It's
Right.
like, you know, account here, you know. So it was in my cousin's email, and I was hanging out with her in the living room. She's like, oh, Dennis, your results came in. Like, do you want?
Did you have any?
So, I mean, have you guys ever got like an STD like test taken?
But did you have any?
Done the test like they do, or it's just when you go for girls? It's just
yeah,
like when
I
you
have.
go for the gynecologist. When you go for your normal appointment,
Yeah.
they just
Right,
do
but
that
like
too.
But did
you
you
don't
have
get
any-
you don't get the results right away.
No,
Right.
but did
Or
you
like
have any doubt? Like, did you think like this? It could go either way, or you just hoping?
You were like
one in a
hoping.
billion, you know.
No, I mean, because I love the kid.
So did you have any doubt though that?
So
it
hear me
wasn't
out. So
yours?
work at UPS, you work by yourself. You just loading package trucks, you know. So like, I just ran every scenario through my head, you know. So like, I prepared myself for the worst.
Well, there's
Yeah.
only 2 scenarios, right? It either is or isn't.
Right.
Right.
I just and during like 4 hours a day, just loading by
Okay,
yourself.
So then you get the results.
My cousin's like, Dennis, do you want to read it? I'm like, nah, you can. And she got this kind of like, and I saw, I'm like, I fucking knew it.
Why did you say you knew it? Why would you know
I
it?
don't know. I just in my head. I don't know.
Okay.
Well, because he said that in the beginning, in the
Right.
beginning he was like,
Okay.
can you
Well,
do it?
no, not even that. Like my old
Did
man.
she read it in Maury's voice or Murray? You are not
yeah.
No,
the father.
so I was like, print that out.
And you started,
Fucking print that out. I didn't even have a car at the time. I was like borrowing someone's car. I'm like, can I use someone? Like, yeah, I guess.
you drove to the,
So I've got a huge chew in my lip. I'm driving on my way to the girl's work. I'm like
Where's the kid right now?
at her fat babysitter
Okay.
grandma's. So I'm driving there and I call her up. I'm like, hey, you work? She's like, yes. I'm like, I'm on my way. She's like, okay. Driving. She calls me while I'm driving and like, hey, if this doesn't have it, the kid's name was Dawson with a Y.
okay.
Dawsyn.
You came up with that?
No.
Alright.
What do
Okay.
you think?
Was your name on the birth certificate?
It was Bermudez.
Dennis or Dawson Bermudez?
Yeah.
DB.
With my kid. I was
Okay.
at the birth.
Okay.
I
He
signed
caught the cord.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm driving there. I'm like, dude, I'm gonna fucking like spit in this bitch's face, like whatever. So I pull up.
You must have been like raging
Oh
that whole
my
drive.
god, like fucking extreme,
Yeah.
right? So I'm like, I'm here. She comes down. It was raining outside. There was like a little awning, and I was like, get in the car. She's like, no. I
She
guess
knew right away.
she could probably see like steam coming out of my ears. I'm like, what the fuck you mean? No, get in the fucking car. She's like,
When was the last time you saw her? Oh, you see her because that
Drop
kid
off
back
with
and
the
forth.
kids, yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So she's like, no. I'm like, get in the like, come here. So she like walks over to the car. I'm like, get in. She's like, what's wrong? Like, what are you doing? I was like,
Oh my god. Oh my god.
I was like,
oh my god.
who were you with before me? And she was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you're 100% sure Dawson's mine? And she got this like, oh,
She knows. Yeah.
She goes, well, 99.9. And I took the paperwork at her and I threw it at her.
1%. 1,000%.
And then I fucking took off.
And that was it.
That was it.
No, that couldn't be it. That was it. You never talked to her again.
Well, she like tried texting me like,
Did you?
she's a complete psychopath. She's like,
Did you
like,
ever see that kid again? After
well,
that
what
day?
she told me, she's like, either you're in the kid's life like you've been, or you're not at all. And I was like,
that's such a hard decision.
no.
'cause it's so-
I, at a young age, I was like, you think I'm gonna give you the power to do what
Yeah.
you fucking have been doing to me
Yes.
for fucking the last year? You're out of
She
your
ruined
mind.
your life at the
Yeah.
time. She took everything.
I
you
mean,
ever wanted.
I wish I like sued her and shit. Right? That's
I don't
definitely
think you
like,
can.
why
I
not?
mean, for
I was
what?
giving her like,
Yeah, you
I was-
probably
you-
could.
I was-
for
there's
sure. You definitely could.
What would it be though? Like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
I mean, there's probably,
Yeah, probably.
something. Hang on, I dropped out of college. I can't get
Yeah,
the rest
she-
of my
yeah,
senior year back
yeah.
from wrestling.
so then what happened? Then you started to do what?
But even then, it must have been a hard decision to like be like.
So I drove
okay.
to the grandmother's house, and the kid was there, and he was sleeping. I gave him a kiss on the head, and she was crying because she knew what would happen. She's like, Dennis, I had no idea, like, because I gave you some shit, I gave you a hard time, you know? I'm like, you fucking fell, like, whatever. And that was it.
She's
You said
probably
goodbye to
like-
the kid that day, and then you never saw him again.
Yeah,
Damn, that's
Was
rough.
that tough for you?
of course.
That's
So then
rough.
you
Oh
thought
my
then
God,
I gotta
Dennis.
do fix my life or
Well, no, I was like,
Cause you're probably like
I would be like hanging out with my buddies, drinking beers, and
went
I'm
back
like,
to being a
I
college
told
kid.
so many people that if I did MMA, I would be
yeah.
Mhm.
good at it. Like I would crush people.
So now you're like, fuck it, I can.
So then I
just
went
go for
to.
it.
Do you know who Steve Blackman is? Do you
Mm-mm.
remember Steve Blackman? He was like the hardcore champ in the WWF.
Oh yeah,
like
yeah.
legit, like
Mhm.
on TV, like
Yeah.
during like The Rock and Stone
Yeah.
Cold's
Yes.
era, you know. So he from traveling around with Ken Shamrock, like kind of picked up MMA and jiu-jitsu and all this shit, and like I think he already had like kendo or some shit. So he opened up an MMA gym, and it was like pretty well known
In that area.
even in like central Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
you know?
But it was in that small town.
So it was just like, because that's what everyone thinks, right? When you walk in an MMA gym, like, you're fighting people. So I like, took me a week to like, all right. I went in there, hey, Steve, how you doing? I think he had me sign some stuff. I'm like, where's your toughest guy? He's like, he's in the back. I'm like, all right.
You said, where's your toughest
swear
guy?
to God,
Well, after that, all that, you're probably like, I
I
want to fight someone.
no,
With no training, just
I
wrestling.
can only wrestle.
Okay, you said,
And
where's
like
your
what
toughest
you've seen
guy?
on TV.
Well, actually, hang on. So I had, prior to that, do you remember Joey, my buddy Joey Gambino? He had like 2 fights in UFC.
Okay.
Siler
Yeah.
and Diego Brandao finished him.
Okay.
I trained one time with him because he was like amateur. He had like 2 fights. He'd been training for 8 months. Decent wrestler, you know, high school level. And he knew I was really good at wrestling. He was like, Dennis, come down to the room. I was like home in Saugerties. So I like wrestled with him and I like tapped him out like once or twice with just like a, you know, full Nelson or like a deep half.
Yeah.
You know, just cranking, you know.
Yeah.
And his coach was like, dude,
You should
do this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I'm like, what? Like, and by that end of that night or the end of that weekend, like my one buddy, who's my neighbor who was training him too, was like, dude, there's a fight at the end of the month in Virginia. You should do it. And I was like, oh, I don't know. Like, what?
Like, am
I'm
I
not-
ready for this?
You were like, how do I sign up? Right? Like,
No, I was like, I don't know, dude. I
Okay.
trained one time. I'm signing up for a fight.
right.
And like my brother and his wife, his now wife, were there, and they're like, "Dude, Dennis, you should do it." And I was like, "Yeah,
This is an amateur card.
under pro rules."
Oh,
Yeah,
But still,
same
yeah.
thing.
You know. So they're like, "Dennis, you should do it." I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Dude, you'll definitely win." And like, he's my neighbor. He's like 9 or 10 years older than me, and I've always looked up to him.
So if he's telling, it's almost
And
like
he's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Yeah." So I was like, "All right." So like I trained that one time and I went to Steve Blackman's gym. I'm like, where's your toughest? Like, let me see where I'm at. I went back there and those guys tapped me out like 3 or 4 times, you know, like each.
Mm-hmm.
But after 2 weeks, none of them could tap me out,
Right.
you know.
Mhm. This is taking like
Figured
a
it
no-gi
out.
class.
Grappling.
It was weird how it was just kind of just like open mat all day.
Yeah.
Like, or the gym. I mean, or from like 7 to 9, it was open. Like
people
this.
just be rolling.
And
whatever.
it's just whatever you want to do. Like if you wanted to hit mitts with some random guy that would say he'd hold mitts for you, you do that. If you wanted to roll, you could do that. If you wanted to spar, go ahead.
Right.
You know.
Then you started taking fights.
Uh,
How many amateur
Hang on,
fights
I
did you have?
had 2 fights lined up before I had one. Like, so I was gonna do this fight, and I'm in this new gym now, and these guys are fighting, and like, yo, dude, there's a fight coming up. A month after the one I had, like, you want to do it? And I was like, yeah, sure. I mean, it was just like the wrestling mentality.
Yeah, yeah.
I fought 9 times that year.
that year.
Yeah.
Well, you're probably
was
so
this
used
all
to it.
amateur,
4 amateur
and then you went pro.
and 5 pro.
Wow,
Yeah.
5 pro fights. Your
I was
first
just
year?
fighting every month.
Well, you're probably
Wow.
so used to from wrestling, like.
Well, yeah, every weekend
So
you
this
battle.
would be in like bars in like Pennsylvania, or
Um,
New Jersey, or I mean, like where were the fights? That's hard to get
Like-
that many fights.
clubs and, you know,
Yeah.
like little venues.
yeah, like gymnasiums and shit like
Yeah.
that,
Mhm.
you know.
Did you get like what, like $500 or whatever?
So amateur was I was
Nothing.
paying.
Yeah,
money.
yeah,
I had to go get a hotel room, food,
But
drive
those
down there,
first pro
gas.
fights though.
But those first, so Steve Blackman was having his own event in Harrisburg, and I was like, dude, let me on this car. He's like, you're still amateur. I'm like, but bro, that guy's pro, and I can beat him.
Yeah, let me go pro.
He's like, no, I don't think the commissioner will allow it. So I went and met with Greg Serb,
Oh,
who's
yeah.
the.
Mhm.
But I go to his office, I walk in, like, hey, how you doing? Like, I'm looking to go pro. He's like, I would like to see you do more. You know, like you finished everybody except for one guy. You finished all these guys
Right.
within 2 rounds. I'm like, yeah, but I think I got what it takes. And he wrestled for
I
Edinburgh
know him. No, he wrestled for
back in the
Edinburgh,
day, and I just hit him with the like EWL,
Yeah. Right.
like,
Mm-hmm.
and he was like, all right. And I fucking got on Steve's show. And I remember I was fighting this guy and every time I shoot on someone, I would take him down. But this my first pro fight, I shot this guy and he was like, just like threw me. I was like,
You're like, now what? Yeah,
what the
I didn't know this
fuck?
was gonna happen.
What do I do now? I fucking took another shot. And he was like, no. And like he had me up against the cage. I was like, this is gonna be a long night.
There's
So-
3-5s pro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we get some distance. And like he's kind of like getting a little bit me, and I just threw like a nice jab and just like stuck him and like it locked him up. I was like, and then I just let it all go. And I fucking finished him with a knee
Really?
first round. And I was like,
I-
Greg, I told you. And
Yeah.
Steve was like, yeah. And I had won $400 to fight, $400 to win. Remember how much I told you I was making before?
Yeah, you probably were
I
like,
was
You're
like,
like, I made it.
am rich.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Made it.
who wants to drink?
and
I
all
mean,
that at one time they give it to you. Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah,
I was like,
Yeah.
and then like on top of that, like,
And you must have been so happy because all that other stuff was gone.
and like Harrisburg is like, it's the capital of Pennsylvania. There's like a nice little strip. I went out
Yeah.
now. I'm like, my confidence is like at an all-time high. I took this girl out,
Yeah.
got some action. Fuck, I'm back.
Wrap
You're
it.
like, that's it.
No.
Oh no.
Oh, I might have. I don't know.
You don't remember.
I was drinking.
CT.
I had a lot of.
So then after that first year, when did you go to the Ultimate Fighter?
Well, my original, the whole fighting was just to get a chip off my shoulder and just
Right.
for fun,
You
really.
didn't
Because
think it'd be a
I
career.
didn't really think I was that good,
Right.
you know. Because I mean, we work with so many like high wrestlers, you know.
You probably
that,
still had the thing was I wasn't even an All-American.
right,
You still
right.
compared it to
and then
wrestling, which doesn't
and I'm
mean
just
anything.
like, the guy's like, I'm pro. I'm like, how does this work? Like, how can you be pro? Like,
right,
I don't get it, you know.
Yeah,
like,
in wrestling you're used to like stats and
Stats,
results and you
accomplishments.
you need that.
Yeah.
That's how you move up in like levels. So
Yeah,
when people
'cause-
don't have it, you're like, what?
Well, I remember.
like, hang on, I've been doing this for 2 months and you're pro.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I guess we're pretty close.
Yeah.
If not, I'm winning. I don't like.
Right. So
Well,
then
for
you
wrestling,
started-
in my head, thought I mastered it, but still wasn't even, you know,
Yeah.
years and years into it, you know.
Yeah.
But that's one of those things where, like, with wrestling, takes so long, and if you're really good at it, it like transfers over to MMA. It's like
Yeah.
let's say it takes 4 years to get good at MMA.
Dude, I was crazier than you. Mine, I had no training, no nothing, no amateur fights, nothing. And same thing. People were like, "Oh, the pro fighter." I'm like, dude, this dude didn't even wrestle. I was like, I'll kill this dude. I got a pro fight against a guy with like 13 pro fights.
That was his first fight
As
ever.
my first fight ever.
Where was that one? Because
It
I
was
did
Cage
go.
Fury in New Jersey.
Which one was I at?
Wasn't like
I
Kimbo
don't-
Slice on it? Or because that
Did we?
He was on the one before.
Okay.
Did we
Yeah.
fight on the same card?
No.
Well,
You were already established by the time I did. But because what year did you do the Ultimate Fighter? That's what I was getting at. 2011, right?
Yeah.
I think my first fight was 2012. But I remember seeing you in Long Island at like Cliff's house, and you were about to go on the Ultimate Fighter. You were there with like
so
Nito
I
and
had moved.
So
I
yeah. So
did-
how'd you end up in Long Island?
I did the Ultimate Fighter tryouts and stuff like that in
Right.
Pennsylvania with some of those other guys, whatever. And I tried out for the 155 season 12. I think
Mhm.
Michael Johnson was on that,
Mhm.
and and I met with those guys. They were in Vegas, whatever. It's cool. And they didn't. I made it to the final interview, and they didn't pick me. If we don't hear from us in 2 weeks, like, you know,
Yeah.
Mhm.
whatever. So a buddy of mine was like, "Hey, dude, they're doing 145." I had never fought at 145. I fought like 160, 165,
Oh, wow.
155. You know, I think the lowest I fought at was 150. Like, dude, they're doing 145. You should try it out. I'm like, I don't know if I make 45. Like, you know. So I call the UFC and I say, "Hey, you said if you did another 155, I didn't have to do the tryouts. I could just do the final.
Mhm.
Does that hold true for 45?" They're like, "Yes." I'm like, "All right, cool." So, bang. And so my kid's mom, my cousin Sean came to my very first pro fight, and he was just like, "Dude, like, you're sick.
Yeah.
Like, you are so sick. Like, what? Like, you're my cousin." I'm like, "Yeah, you know,
Uh-huh.
sick, whatever." So in Pennsylvania, I had a lot of downtime
Yeah.
if I wasn't like working. So, and Facebook was out, so I'd spend like hours like on Facebook. So I went to my cousin's page, and he's younger than me, like maybe like 4 years. And I was like looking at all the girls like he was friends with, because I was like, I love Long Island girls. This, whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm like, dude, hook me up. He's like, yeah.
Oh, he's from Long Island?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think like my second or third pro fight, like I'm fighting, he's like, I'm coming. And he brought my kid's mom with him.
Oh, okay.
You know? So they're like, I go to weigh in and they're like, no one called you? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, your opponent backed out last night. And I was like, what? Stop. Like, and like, I'm like, dude, I made weight. Like, you better fucking pay me my money.
Where was this?
Pennsylvania.
Okay.
I'm like, you better pay me.
Yeah.
And Steve Blackman like came and had my back, and he's fucking like 250 pounds, like muscles. Like, I think he met him like halfway. I got like half my like show money.
Yeah.
But that was good for me.
Yeah.
I called off work the one day to make weight, whatever.
Yeah.
So I called my cousin, like, dude, are you still on your way to watch me fight? He's like, yeah. I'm like, where are you? Because they just canceled my fight.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, we're like already in PA. So I'm like, whatever, just come over, we'll party. But I think she was like, he's my friend, but he was like, I'm trying to hook up with her. She saw the big dog. Was like, whoa.
That was a wrap.
Yeah. So we like drank a bunch of beers and.
So then you started training.
So I started
Long
like
Island.
dating her.
Yeah, that's when you started
long
coming
distance.
here. And that's before the Ultimate Fighter. You started training.
Yeah. So, and which is really weird because I would call Sarah's. I'm like, hey, like, where's your pro team? I want to start. I'm gonna be in Long Island. There's like every once in a while on weekends, you know. And they just kept trying to sell me like, I do not want to train with your average Joe.
Yeah.
I think it was Nick
Fighter.
too. It's like, oh, we have classes on like Monday at this time. I'm like, no. Like, you guys don't have a pro team? Like, we do. Okay, I want to train with them. I'm like, yeah. So come to this time. I'm like, that's your class. So I did go one time, and I'm like, I'm not doing it.
Yeah. It wasn't like the same thing.
And then I had wrestled Ryan Needle in college, and Ryan Needle in New York is like, he was the bee's knees when it came to wrestling.
Yeah.
He was like supposed to be, you know. So I kind of looked up to him throughout high school and stuff like that. And then when I wrestled him in college, you know, came out on top. But always was like, I liked him. And I was working at Big Al's Family Fitness, and he lifted there.
Okay.
So I was working the front desk. I'm like, Ryan Needle? He's like, hey, what's up, dude? I'm like, what are you doing here? Like, are you from like
lived
Rochester?
across the street?
Yeah.
And he's like, nah, after college, I like moved here with some buddies. I'm like, sick. Like, you want to like hang out? He's like, but I remember I got his number, and I was like, hey man, like, do you know any gyms? He's like, oh, my buddy Ryan has a gym. So I called Ryan LaFlair.
Such a small world.
I called Ryan LaFlair, and then I went in there and like told him like, hey man, I'm about to get on the Ultimate Fighter. You know, I need kind of somewhere to train. And he was like, all right. And I think they saw enough skill and they like invested in me, if you will, where I didn't have to pay.
Yeah, and it was more like a real like a fight team. That's It's so crazy though, because if it wasn't for Cliff Smith, he probably would have never trained with Ryan or any of that. Because if Cliff Smith wasn't in the picture, Needle wouldn't have been at Big Al's, and you would have never met any of them.
Yeah,
it's so weird because sometimes when I like, everyone obviously was already living on Long Island when we started dating. I'd never even really been to Long Island, and then I was like, oh, this person's like a fighter. I'm like, wait, I just assumed everyone was born and raised on Long Island. And then I'm like, wait, you're not? I'm like, I'm like, are they a college friend? No, they're like this. I'm like, it's so crazy how everyone knows each other.
But it's all from like,
it's all connected like that. It's so crazy.
Because then, but
what would you say is like the glue of that? Like,
it's Cliff Smith.
And he brought like a bunch of like Buffalo wrestlers to Long Island,
no,
right?
but like, and then like Scott met LaFlair through Cliff. And then, like all,
so crazy.
It's Cliff Smith.
Cliff's like the glue of everything.
Yes.
But you would never think.
Yeah, it's
like
wild.
A bunch, not saying he's not an animal.
No, but that's
he's a complete
really,
animal.
I mean, unrelated. Like, it's like the 7 degrees of separation to Kevin Bacon, you know?
Yeah.
Like, that's a thing. Like, it comes down to him for all of us. It's so wild. But yeah, because then, you know, I mean, you could jump ahead, but then you're in the UFC, you're doing so good. I remember thinking, I was like, wait, Dennis is like famous. I was like, he's like my friend. I know him, but you were like on TV all the time, like Fight of the Night all the time. Yeah. So many bonuses. Then I remember when you fought Clay Guida I watched it at LaFleur's condo in Florida.
Oh yeah.
And like everyone was there, and it was like, no, then there was another one when you fought. Who was the guy? You were on like a 7-fight win streak. Then you lost. Lamas. Everyone watched that. It was like, if Dennis wins this, he's gonna fight like Conor McGregor.
Right.
It was really like,
no, that was before Conor.
But you were gonna fight for the championship.
I was like right there. Yeah.
But it was like he won like 7 in a row, and I was like, I know this dude.
Yeah.
And then I remember like we'd go out, and you'd be like using like, you'd be like, oh, Google me, like telling girls to like Google
You
him.
got to, you gotta do what you gotta do. It probably worked.
No, it did not.
No, it didn't work, because I told him that too. I was like, listen, man, do you remember this? We were in the Freeport Nautical Mile.
Oh, well, no,
But I said to it, I was like, you were like, Google me. I was like, listen, dude, if you're famous, you're a famous fighter. If they care about fighting, they're gonna know you. So you telling them to Google, they'll be like, oh, cool, what's that? Like, it doesn't matter. It's really good if they know you already. Yeah. Then it's, but if you have to tell someone you're famous, then you're not famous enough.
So leaving The Ultimate Fighter, Dana White was like, listen, whoever picks you up from the airport, like, that's your person. Mm-hmm. Like, don't stray from that, because like you're gonna have girls hitting you up from every angle, like girls you didn't even know existed that knew you are like, hey, what's up? Mm-hmm. And I was like, that sounds awesome.
Yeah. What's wrong with that?
So
I remember that, and I was just like, and just the boy's mom at the time, before we had them, I was like, let me see how famous I am.
Yeah.
I'm like, and fucking.
Well, I feel like for a young guy, like that's super normal.
Super normal, but
yeah, I was 24.
Especially living like around
but
here.
But that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about. I wanted like all that stuff. Like you were like a legit famous, like top level, calling out Frankie Edgar, top level MMA fighter. Like, how hard has it been to? Now we're jumping ahead, but to transition to like a regular career.
Oh, dude,
I mean, you've made a lot of money fighting. You bought a house fighting, but like, how tough is it to be like, have a regular boss be like, well, Dennis, you're fucking late. Like, how hard is that?
It's definitely tough. And like, again, one of my reasons for getting into the job and quitting the UFC was like the Aaron Hernandez documentary came out, and like CT was like being blasted all over the place. I'm like, I am one that does take a fucking, like, even if I win, I'm getting fucking tagged a few times. Like, I never go in there, hit a guy twice, and like, it's always a war, and I'm usually falling to the ground at some point and then getting up, and like, again.
So that was definitely a concern for you?
Yeah, with having kids, you know, and like, and the UFC is, when you're 70, you're not gonna be like, hey, you really helped us out. Let me help you with your brain trauma bills, you know?
So you were concerned with that. That was a big thing. But now that you're out, like how hard is it for you to not like without like that? I'm the third ranked fighter in the world.
I mean,
you still trying to tie it back.
Last week, I'm in the air. I'm like 40 feet in the air with like another lineman, and like one of the hardest things for me is like I have never like. I can count how many times I've had a tool in my hand prior to this job, like on 2 hands.
Yeah.
Where these guys come from, like, I was a carpenter, I was an electrician, I am MacGyver, where I'm like...
they're mechanically inclined.
Yeah, where I'm just like I remember one guy was like, hey, with the adjustable, make sure that's facing down. I'm like, yeah, I knew that. Like, I had no clue, like holding a hammer. So now I'm like...
And then any of the things that you devoted your whole life to and reached the highest level of proficiency in, like, I have the sickest leg kick. Who cares? I have a great guillotine. Nobody cares. Like, all of those skills.
And you go from being like so good and high to being like probably like the worst person. Like, you don't even know how to hold a hammer. And you're like, fuck.
Like,
they're laughing at you probably.
Yeah. Oh my God. And I'm just like, I could fucking.
Yeah.
There was like, and it's so.
Sometimes did you think like, fuck this, I'm going back to fighting at the beginning?
No.
But how nice is it? Because here's the thing. I think as a fighter, you think when you're fighting, especially like when you're in the thick of camp or like after a loss, you're like, how many times? I still remember after.
I quit like 7 times in my head. Like,
remember after I lost to Valentino, like then, I lost and then like my family, we were all hanging out in our hotel room. Then like when they left, I remember just crying and being like, I wish I was just like a fucking secretary and I was just like watching the fights at a
you
bar
don't have to
tonight.
deal with that pain.
I was like, because that would be so much cool. I'm like, you just go to work and then hang out when you're not at work. You're done and you just hang out with your friends and have a good time.
And
But
like you don't have emotional damage of like a loss that hurts you forever.
Well, I would think about that like on the way out to some fights, like why, like especially the first few ones, like
every
why
time.
the fuck am I doing?
You're
this?
like, I could be sitting here like drinking beers, watching this, screaming like
on the way
everyone
out,
else.
like I'm about to get into a fist fight with a guy that's been training for fucking
They're trying to kill
his
me
whole life to fucking really hurt me badly.
And if I don't win, my paycheck gets cut in half.
Right?
That's
I'm
like,
just like,
so you
why
I always kind of envy people that have like a steady paycheck.
But
I'm
then
like,
you win, you're like, that's why.
Yeah.
So how much?
Yes.
How much do you like?
Bitch!
Yeah.
Next week I'll be back.
Yeah.
Get me back in here.
Do you like having a steady paycheck and like a retirement? And do you see the value in that, or do you be like, oh, I like getting $100,000 at a time? Like,
I mean, it is, especially that I'm like, I want to really become like an entrepreneur and like
Right.
having like funds.
Yeah.
Like a lot of it at once is.
It's nice to be like, oh, I'm gonna fight again and get a big chunk,
Right,
or like,
right,
oh, I
right,
could get a
yeah.
bonus or something like that. You know?
yeah, it's
Yeah.
tough to get a big chunk.
Yeah, but
Right.
I wasn't like when I was
Well,
fighting.
the
though,
long
I
picture.
wasn't. I definitely stayed in my lane. I feel
Yeah,
like
you did.
in terms of
You did. I mean, you bought a house on Long Island
It's
with
not a
just
big
fighting,
house.
though.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, that's a big deal because most times people, when you go to get a mortgage, they're like, well, you're a fighter. That's not guaranteed money, but you
Yeah.
were so established and you had so much, you know what I mean? That you were
Yeah.
able to buy a house on Long Island
which
before this
might
job.
have even like now that I think about it, like might have messed with my interest rate a little bit.
Maybe a little,
I
but
don't know.
still, you're able to do it.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
big deal.
Uh,
And once you have that, I mean,
Then
you
you're-
could kind of start building, you know?
yeah, it was
Like you said,
definitely-
like right now, like that's something now that, you know, we've remained close is like, you're always looking to improve yourself.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
you're not just gonna be like, well, now this is my job. That's it. Now you're like, I want to get into real estate and do that.
Yeah,
And I think that's something. That's why you know we're probably close friends. 'Cause We're
Right.
similar like that.
Right.
We're not satisfied.
right.
with just-
Well, and me and you always say it, like, fucking figure it out. And I told you my story how I did, and I was like almost crashing, and like I'm
Yeah.
gonna make enough money to make rent, and I'm gonna take care of this kid. I'm gonna try and wrestle, and you know. And now my new thing is I'm gonna run 2 miles every day.
Right.
You know, and I'll do that for I said just for December. We'll see that, and
Yeah.
I'll play it off of that. You know,
But it's interesting, like the cycles of your life. you
I think
know?
what's like really crazy and you know it stands out to me about you is that like you went through some shit.
oh,
And
yeah.
like I think you're the most positive
Thank you.
person.
He
Like I know
is.
I've never seen you like not in a good mood. You
Yeah.
always have like great things to say about everyone. Like I just think you're just such a positive person and like you know to know that you like dealt with all that shit. It's like damn, okay. Sometimes you're like that's crazy.
And, you know, not to just stroke Dennis the last time, but like that and just having the ability to go from like an elite athlete to like a, you know, it's a good job, but a 9-to-5
Yeah.
job. Most people cannot do that.
Well,
Like,
hey,
I wouldn't
bro.
hire
Well, I think that's
anyone.
more of a lazy
Everyone like
thing.
thinks like, oh, wrestling, wrestlers. Like, fuck that. People like high level athletes are usually not great employees.
yeah,
They could be good entrepreneurs, but in terms of an employee, I think it's difficult
Yeah.
because it's hard to
Especially an individual sport. You do
Yes,
your
it's
own
hard to,
MMA,
like,
you do your own
take
thing.
orders.
yeah,
You know what
yeah.
I mean? It's
Well, I
hard to-
mean, yeah. Well, I was like my own coach, kind of
course.
for
No one
fighting.
makes you go to training.
No, I would like sit down and write down my own schedule. Like, all right, I'm gonna go here, there, and I would show it to other coaches.
Yeah.
Like, this, you think this looks good?
Yeah.
And I would talk to people that are very well educated in that and do that. But no, it is. I remember when I first started work, I'd be like holding a sign because I couldn't actually
Right.
do anything. I wasn't like,
You're like an intern almost, right?
No,
or an
well, no.
apprentice.
yeah, I'm an apprentice. I'm
Yeah.
still an apprentice, but
Okay.
like I wasn't even like approved to do like some stuff. So I'd be like holding a sign on like Old Country Road or something like that. Like hopefully
And
no
people,
one.
yeah, then you're
Like,
embarrassed.
I
Like,
wonder if someone would notice me. Like,
which is crazy because you shouldn't be embarrassed because it's a good job. But
yeah, but I'm just like,
you're
dude,
thinking
look at
like
me,
they used
like-
to watch me on TV.
But I'm now like
Man, that's such an
helping
interesting
these
thing.
guys. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I
like,
don't know. At
Because
first,
you're at people don't understand you are the hardest weight class at the very, very top of the hardest.
Yeah.
Calling out Frankie Edgar, like if you're calling out Frankie Edgar, you're at the top of the weight class.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
yeah.
Like, you know, how to
You're-
fall back,
you know.
like everyone talks about like Max Holloway all the
He
time.
beat Max Holloway.
Yeah.
And then
You know?
he with Frankie, I love Frankie. But he took the Jeremy Stevens fight over me. It was they gave him like.
It would have been at MSG.
Do you want Dennis or Jeremy?
Yeah. That was good for a smart decision. I mean, that's an easier fight for sure.
Yeah.
But Jeremy had already beaten me, I think.
But sometimes that doesn't always matter. You know what I mean?
I know, but
do you want to touch on any of the fights last night or not really?
I mean, we're good. We kind of touched on them a little. I think that
Clay Guida had an amazing win. He got his fucking ass kicked.
And then I turned it on after that.
Came back, like the guy got exhausted.
So hang on, talking about like, do you like? I fucking smoked that guy.
But I remember when you beat Clay Guida in like 2012, thinking, well, that's a good win for Dennis, but Clay Guida's done. Here, 9 years later, he's getting bonuses.
Yeah, he got performance bonus, I think.
Yeah.
That was crazy. He got like, I was watching, I'm like, wait, why are they not stopping it? And then the guy, like, when he started, like, unloading on him, he's looking at the ref, like, are you going to stop it? And then that went on for, like, another minute and a half. So then the guy, like, gassed out.
Let's answer that elf question that someone asked.
Yeah.
So use Dennis as a father.
Okay. Well, someone asked, will the Serms do Elf on a Shelf for our future kids? Okay. Well, we don't really, like, know much because growing up, we didn't have it. I know it from social media. That's kind of a new thing. Right, last 15 years, like
10 years.
We didn't do it, but they did, and everyone. I've seen a meme where it's like this like girl like sleeping with smiling, and she's like me knowing I'm never gonna introduce Elf on the Shelf to my kids, so I don't have to do it.
Do your guys do that? Yeah. See, I like the traditional things, but I feel like in a few years. It's not going to be any traditional things. They're going to be like, no, you can't have Santa anymore because he's, just a white guy, and you're not allowed to have. They're going to like cancel it. It's going to probably just evolve into like some random thing.
Yeah, I saw something where they're like, Santa should be a girl. I'm like, isn't that Mrs. Claus? Like we have that.
But I could see the whole thing changing.
My one buddy showed me like Santa in some new movies gay.
Yeah.
Like.
We're like, well, what about
That's
Mrs.
what's going to happen. It's going to they'll just get
like,
rid of everything.
Why can't Santa Claus just live by himself? Let that be it.
Yeah.
But I think the Elf on the Shelf is going to slowly like replace that because the elf is like a mystical teacher, but Santa's like, well, why is this white guy in charge of giving?
Yeah, but
gifts?
I think in the thing isn't like the elf like Santa's how or he goes back and forth. I think
they'll
Santa.
just probably eventually.
Well, he's always watching, isn't that?
Yeah, he's like always watching. I'm like, what? Santa's too busy to watch.
So what's the answer?
I mean, I'll probably do it, to be honest. I don't really know much about it. Like,
you just hide them in weird spots.
But your guys don't do that, huh? You're the mother?
Well, one, I don't have. I'm so bad with.
No, what
That's
about
like
their
the
mother,
mom
though?
job.
Do they do it?
I don't think so.
No?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know anything about it, so I got to learn a little bit more about it.
Like, in my head, at first, I'm like, every tooth they lose, I'll give him money. But then I'm like, he wasn't even at my house when he lost it. Like,
save your money.
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, like, hey, kid lost a tooth. Like, that's going to ruin the tooth fairy, right?
Right. Because then you're like, oh, I lost it 3 days ago. And how does he know? Yeah.
Anything else you want to touch on? We did a lot, man. It was. I mean, it kind of went in a different direction.
I love it.
Your story was just amazing, man.
I can't believe I didn't know that story.
Your whole story.
Oh, and I still gotta I mean, we could save it for next time, but traveling cross country.
Oh,
I was supposed to save that one.
That is the most insane story ever. But that's literally another 2-hour podcast. Remember at the house that one night?
Yes.
My head was spinning.
Hang on. My girlfriend was. I'm like, dude, just let me tell the story.
My head was spinning that day, but we need to have you in and just do that story.
Do that story, yeah.
Good. Right now, if we were to do it, I mean, poor Zane. It's already been a long time, but it would be like 9 o'clock at night.
No, Zane got some right. This is like an emotional podcast, right?
Yeah, I think.
But really appreciate you coming on, man.
Do we shake hands? Or?
Yeah, I mean, if you want. Yeah. But. No, but you're one of the friendships that I really value.
Thanks,
and we're happy that you're here.
Yeah, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, let's party.
Check them out. Instagram. Menace
Bermudez.
Menace
my
Bermudez.
name is Dennis Bermudez, and my fight name is Menace. See what I did there?
Menace Bermudez and Menace and the Man podcast.
Yep.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Bye, guys. Thank you.